Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Superman and Lois Season 1 Episode 11. It's called A Brief Reminiscence in Between Cataclysmic Events. It's a long-ass title with lots of big words, thank you for that. This is effectively a flashback episode for the most part, although it does have some pretty big present-day ramifications once it gets into the latter chunk.
It's about just over half. It's flashback.
Yeah, but it feels like it is a full flashback episode because it's quite late in the flashbacks before there's a hint that there's anything even connecting it to something else. Because there's the one vague, like, there's a shadow over there that looks a bit funky. But up until that point, it's just a flashback episode. We're just going to do 45 minutes of flashbacks.
Lots of TV shows do a flashback episode. It's perfectly fine. You don't think anything about it.
And as soon as it did that, I went, oh, now it feels like a Black Mercy episode, in a way.
I did the same, yeah.
And it isn't really, because it is literally just his past. It's not an ideal situation. It is the genuine flashbacks, but in the sense that there's something to wake up from, in the sense that we're in his head, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I appreciate that it wasn't a Black Mercy situation, because I also thought it might be, and like say, that's the idealized version. I appreciate that we can still take everything we saw, barring those one or two minor glitches, shall we say, at face value as, no, this happened. This is exactly how it was.
Yeah, we start off with Clark, going to because we saw flashbacks of him leaving town, and so we get kind of the other end of that where teenage Clark goes to the Arctic and he's got the crystal, and he doesn't throw it in this version. He just drops it onto the ground.
It's the thing that no matter how many times I watch this scene, or these interpretations of this moment, it always bugs me that Clark's just angry enough to just throw the crystal away or just drop it in disgust in this case. Like, I never quite buy that moment.
Well, no, to be fair, in the original movie, he doesn't throw it in disgust. He throws it in because the crystal kind of...
Yeah,
that's not Smallville I'm thinking of. Smallville's the one where it kind of points and says, here, send me this direction.
Is that Smallville, that one?
Yeah, Smallville, because it's actually the emblem, right? So it's got like a triangular-esque quality, and it points... And that's where he throws it. So it's kind of like it directs him to do it. So credit to Smallville for being the one that actually gives him a reason to throw it. But, yeah. I don't necessarily have a problem with him getting frustrated in the movie, though.
It always just rings a little bit false to me. Just the idea of, he's followed this crystal on this journey, and this is the moment of, forget it.
But I thought it felt even weirder to me that he just drops it like it's nothing. Like, oh well, because it's not like he throws it in anger. It's not an emotional thing. It's like, that didn't work then. All right,
it's just like just down on the ground in disgust, but not anger.
But he walks away, and as that's happening, the rumbling of the ground, and then the fortress forms. Now, I never really had a complaint about the fortress in this show looking a bit more like a generic ice cave than the actual, Superman movie fortress that Supergirl and Smallville also used. However, we have encountered a problem with the design of it, is that in the last episode, when Morgan goes to what has turned out to be his fortress, we never recognised it was a fortress because it just looks like a big lump.
Well, I agree that is a critique that we didn't realise it was a fortress. I like it because that's the point. It's hidden. It just looks like part of the geography of Earth.
I get that logic. But Supergirl actually had a thing. Remember in season 3, we actually did see a fortress made out of rock. We had like one that formed in like the desert or something like that, or in wherever.
We did, but we also have to remember that nothing on Supergirl matters anymore.
No. I know. I'm not saying this as a continuity thing. I'm saying this just as an example of we saw. In that, we knew immediately it was doing a Fortress of Solitude, just in a different location, because we recognised the architecture, we recognised the design of it. Whereas here, even when as they're being created, I mean, I got it, obviously at the end of the episode when we see the Morgan Edge version of this, where he throws the crystal in the desert and it, makes the thing. We knew it was happening because of the context, but there's nothing visually interesting about the formation of these fortresses because they are just big lumps of cave.
They are, but again, I absolutely understand why this is a negative to you and probably other people in that it's a bit
less interesting,
boring, less
boring.
Interesting. But I really like it in the sense of this is a reason why people didn't just in the satellite imaging just go, what the shit is that over there in the desert?
I can buy the Kryptonian text shielding it from typical
This is easier to buy. It just looks like part of the ground.
I get the logic behind it. And I never bothered me before, but it was just in this episode, and by retrospect, the end of the last episode, because we said he's going towards something, but we didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
It was like, if that just looked like the fortress, but made out of rock, like from the movie or from Supergirl, we would have just immediately went, oh, that's his fortress. He's got a fortress. It's made of rocks and ice.
Yeah.
But, whatever. It's just a similar thing. What I will compliment here, of course, it first turns on Jor-El, and gets his lessons and whatnot. I did like the transition to adult Clark through the running. I thought that was a neat looking effect for a CW TV show. I thought that looked quite good.
I actually thought it looked really solid as well.
Yeah.
And I was glad that it did it as early as it did.
Oh yeah, because the tage actor, we complained about him last time when he was in scenes.
And don't get me wrong, I have nothing to complain about this time. He didn't have anything to do.
No.
Mercifully. But also, again, in things of this show kind of, having moments akin to Man of Steel, that first flight was not that dissimilar from that movie.
Which, to be fair, was also a take on the original Superman movie as well. They all kind of share a DNA of like being in the Arctic and the first flight. Whereas notably though, he was smiling in happiness when he achieved flight because clearly he felt like, this is freaking cool. I'm flying. This is great. Woohoo!
I can't even say this, but I think Cavill smiles as well. I think it's like the only time he smiles in that movie.
I think he smiles a little bit, but he looks very serious for a lot of it.
Because I remember thinking for a long time that was my favourite scene in that movie. Partially because the music's great, but also because I think it's one of the only times he looks like Superman.
Sure. One of the few times I think he looks like Superman in that movie is when he catches the soldier in Smallville, and when he lands he goes, are you okay? In a really sort of genuine way that felt Superman-y to me. And before people say, well, he wasn't smiling in the original movie. No, I know. But to be fair, the original movie does not treat that like his first time flying. It treats it as our first time seeing him fly. There is a difference.
There is.
He seems like he's already been doing it. He knows what he's doing in that takeoff. So, Anyway. So he goes back to Smallville, sees Ma Kent. I will say that I've often found it a bit weird, this idea that he never goes back and visits Ma Kent in the decade or whatever it is that he's training the fort. Like, he never goes back to civilization for food, because he can. He's Superman. He can just go back whenever he wants. It's not a big deal.
I'm assuming he goes to civilization food, but not. He doesn't go home and visit people.
Goes to like Iceland or whatever.
Yeah,
we town in Iceland.
Yeah, exactly.
That funny American guy.
Village.
That funny American guy keeps coming in. Where does he live?
It's the real inspiration between the all the Aquaman scenes in Justice League coming up out of the water, just in the little village.
But I like the characterization more or less of a lot of this. Ma Kent having a dream and making the suit before he even comes back is a little bit weird.
Well, yeah. I was like, Ma Kent's a precog now? Okay.
Because when she pulled out we just saw the red cloak part of it, right? I thought, oh, she's going to present him with the blanket, that she's sort of, everything happened so fast before that she never thought to like mention this to him. And she's like, hey, I was looking through your old stuff, and this blanket, you arrived, and I thought we were going to get not necessarily a montage of making the suit or anything, but just this was going to lead to the suit. Is the idea that she's got the red cape, the red blanket.
I like how good Ma Kent's eye is. That even in a dream, she can size him up.
Oh, for sure. She knows there's although it did keep the one thing from Lois and Clark it kind of kept is that she has a comment at the end of the scene saying, oh, the chest is still missing something. She didn't think about a symbol. She didn't know what the symbol would be, obviously.
Yeah.
So obviously that's something that he, along with presumably Jor-El's help, I imagine.
Well, he's just spent a decade in the fortress. He's probably familiar with it.
Yeah, he's been staring at it every day for 10 years or whatever it's been. So yeah,
it's on Jor-El's chest the entire time.
Honestly, the only real caveat we have to this flashback episode is that we have to just sort of roll with the idea that our two leads are 20 years younger, and that's being generous that it's only 20 years. It really should be a bit more than that, probably.
Well, we know when Clark comes back to Smallville, it's 2002. Because Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is playing in the theatre.
Of course you noticed that detail. Of course you noticed that.
Oh, I saw the big Harry Potter sign, playing. When he goes up to see, oh, Lana's there, and you see Harry Potter, and then you see the poster afterwards. Because once I'd seen that, I was looking out for it.
19 years. All right. Okay, I mean, 3 years till she gets pregnant, or till the kids are born, is maybe a little bit of a stretch. But
yeah,
I mean, not it's unrealistic from a real world point of view. Like, plenty of couples have kids by 3 years in, but what I mean is just in the context of thinking about their time operating as Superman and Wonder Woman and whatever. This show definitely condenses the time that she didn't know he was Superman, because obviously it happens. We see it in this episode, but it doesn't feel then that time actually lasted that long comparatively.
Yeah, we know she was dating Clark for a few months. Oh no, for a few months, and that was about a year after Superman started popping up, right? When she does the TV interview, and I'm assuming it's not that long after that Clark tells her.
Yeah, because that transitions from that into the, taking home to see Martha. So, but yeah, there's some good stuff in here. Obviously, we get the scene from the pilot again, with the kid, but we get the context of it from like before and after. I thought, some of the way they worked in classic Superman things here were delightful. The phone booth. I particularly liked the way it integrated the truth, justice, and even like sort of jokingly added the American way thing in, because it was kind of this thing where Superman says truth and justice, and Lois adds it in, and he kind of jokingly goes, "You're just trying to figure out if I landed in America." So that's what you're trying to do right now.
That's one of my favorite moments in this episode, which, by the way, I would say, very good episode.
Oh yes.
Is during this interview where he kind of casually drops that he starts speaking in Cantonese, I think it is.
Yeah.
He's like, so you speak other languages? And he's like, yeah, I studied them, wanted to learn about people, and languages are interesting. She's like, well, how many? All of them.
I genuinely had the thought here. I'm like, is there anyone on Earth like that are as a linguistic, like people who are into linguistics and all that, like professors and whatnot, is there anyone on Earth who legitimately knows every single Earth language that's operating right now that is used?
I would say probably not, but it's not impossible, especially with how many languages share roots. And if you're into linguistics to that degree, you could probably work out a lot.
I just made me wonder, like, is there anyone, like, is that like a thing that's done, like, is there the extreme end of the spectrum where there's people who can legitimately go to any place on Earth and will know the language?
I'd say maybe not know the language like like a speaker would, like fluently, but probably enough to get by in passing conversation. I believe that. I believe that there are people out there who do that.
Because I feel like I hear often people who know like 4 languages, 6, maybe 7, but I don't tend to hear it going 2 above that number. So I wonder, and I'm sure there is more. I'm sure people who study languages are way above that. But
the most I personally knew someone was someone who spoke at 11, and not like completely fluent in 11, but like could get by, passably.
That makes sense. That made me wonder. I was like, how unbelievably like super does this sound? Which, because the one little Superman reference they put in that I thought was a little bit forced was the bird in the plane comment, where Clark, he turns back into Clark and then he turns around and this random woman's like, there was a man over there, he flew, and he's like, flew? It's like, yeah, like a bird or a plane. No, he understands what to fly means. That just felt a bit forced that she's trying to explain what flying is by bringing up a bird in the plane. I don't know, it just felt a little bit.
What do you look like? Like a man in a cape flying. Helpful.
Yeah. But that felt more believable, that comment, even though it was very unhelpful.
That's the sort of stupid shit people say.
Yeah. Something I did appreciate, actually, though, is how they kind of had... like, so obviously, it's always been a traditional thing is that Lois names Superman, right? And we have this thing where her and Clark have been looking out for this arsonist who's like a proper comic book arsonist with an outfit and
a Nazi.
He's a Nazi too. It never rung any bells for me exactly if this is a character from the comic. I'm sure it probably is, but I never nothing was popping in my head.
It feels like it's some sort of obscure pull, but I wasn't familiar with them either.
But so Clark has been helping Lois with this when he's just a grunt. He's gotten a job basically just to be Perry's lackey at the Daily Planet. And this is them just trying to justify why I'd be hired with no real world experience, which is hard to buy, but they do the best they can with it.
You gotta just roll with some of these things, don't you?
But Superman obviously shows up to help the the situation because he's there with the flamethrower. He's got grenades. He has to grab the grenades and he gets knocked back into a building. And I do love that Lois steps in and zaps him. So Lois actually gets to be the hero effectively in this scene as well, which is a really nice sort of showing of the two of them as a pair together. But they do the classic thing where she's going to name him Superman. But what I liked about it is that the word super naturally came into the conversation before she got to that point. Because when he mentions, she asks, like, how did you know this was happening? And he says, oh, my hearing. And she's like, what? It's like, and honestly, it felt natural that even in a world without Superman, someone might describe, like, really good hearing as super hearing. It didn't feel like a stretch. Now, admittedly, he could have said enhanced hearing. He could have said...
Right, but you gotta feel like the idea or the concept of superpowers and superheroes was not alien to them entirely. So the idea of saying super to describe a superpower that doesn't feel that weird. And
he doesn't say it on the nose either. He just kind of goes, because he doesn't know how to explain it. He's like, it's super hearing. Like, he just kind of, it doesn't feel like a forced thing. So when he and he says, I'm sure you'll think of a name, and he flies off, and someone says, who is that? And she looks up and says, Superman. This like, I appreciated, not that it needed it, because there's been other versions that I think have been fine, but I kind of liked that it kind of set up, and the word was in her head, and it kind of just clicked for her that that's what it should be called.
The word was there, she'd seen the S, and was like, that works.
Yeah. So, I'm for it. So, although that was neat, I thought it was some just nothing too far that strayed. I suppose the big change they kind of made here, which is an interesting one, it's not necessarily completely new. I think it has been done before, but the idea that Lois falls for Clark Kent more than Superman. Often it'll be the other way around, where she kind of ignores Clark and she's in love with Superman, and Clark's almost trying to prove himself so that she kind of falls for him for just that part of him as a way to prove that it's not for just being the hero and the superpowers and all that. But I think it's kind of neat that she falls for Clark instead, and it leads to kind of an entertaining scene, the super eavesdropping, as it were, at the TV interview where the producer's like, hey, I think he's into you, and of course he is because he's Clark, but that's the comedy of it, that's the gist of it. And then Lois feeling, and the way he kind of just like, shrugs the eyebrows at them when she asks, like, does he have like some sort of like super hearing? And Lois just looks around.
And he's just like, oops, rumbled.
Yeah. So I think all these little spins it was doing on these various things, because it's one of these things where on the one hand you want to just see the same things you've seen at least 2 or 3 times at this point in various movies and TV shows, but at the same time, if you alter too much, it's like, well, now you're just being different for the sake of being different, and it doesn't feel like proper Superman or Lois or Clark anymore. So I thought they straddled that line fairly well. I did laugh that they had a Jimmy reference, but made a point of not showing Jimmy.
Yeah, that was very noticeable. And then Clark acting as the photographer for the next little while.
Yes, although apparently there is the first crossover character is coming next episode. I'll mention it at the end just in case anyone wants to go in completely cold. So I'll warn everyone and then tell you at the end. It's probably not the first name you'd expect, unless you've casually heard something in the news that would.
I haven't. I can tell you that for a fact. I don't know what this is, so this will be fresh to me at least.
It wouldn't have been your first pick. I'll say that.
Is it just which show are they crossing over from? Is it Supergirl or is it something else?
Something else.
Okay. Okay.
Hence why it wouldn't be your first, second, third, fourth, or fifth pick.
Yep, just all right, knock out that section of the list.
Yes, which is the list that makes the most sense, but that's fine.
It's definitely Sarah Lance.
It's not Sarah, but do you know what's so funny about it though is that I was thinking at the end of this episode, if given where this episode ends up, I was like, it feels weird if why is Kara not flying in to assist with all these evil Kryptonians? It feels like this is the exact. Not only is it big enough for Supergirl to get involved with, it's directly related to her as well.
You have to assume the answer is because this isn't in the same Earth anymore. Somehow. That's
very. But then again, we have another crossover character coming next episode, so I don't know how much that flies.
Yep.
I could only assume that there's something going on in the new season of Supergirl that kind of takes her off the board for flying over and helping. That she's too busy, or maybe at the end of Supergirl's final season, she'll lose her powers or something. And
that season hasn't started yet, right?
Oh, it started. They had this first, it had like a month of episodes when this was on break.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's coming back to finish after this is done. So, so I don't know. If there's anything in Supergirl that explains why she wouldn't be able to just come and help, and it's not like it's just a minor thing. This is like other Kryptonians have shown up, and not only that, they've kind of brainwashed Superman by the end of this episode. It's kind of important.
Yeah,
and
things are kicking off.
And also, Morgan Edge is also still related to her too, technically. So, kind of in a roundabout way.
Not by blood, I don't think.
Not by blood, but in that kind of step way where, she's cousins with Clark, and then
it's like an in-law.
Looking at, okay, fine, but it still, I mean, not that it even matters. Like, if this was some random Kryptonian,
it's Kryptonians,
yeah.
Yes. The point stands.
Anyway, so that's the gist of the flashback stuff. He marries Lois, of course. Some of these shots were in the pilot as well, so it was kind of interesting sort of seeing them inserted here in context. Him telling her who he is, her getting the pregnancy test and saying she's pregnant, and finding out it was two boys when she wanted a girl, which I thought was kind of funny. Not even just her reaction. I thought it was when she said "I want a girl." I thought it was funny because it's like, oh, you get two boys. That's almost it's like more than the opposite. It's the ironic opposite of wanting a girl. And
there's also the tragedy of it as well, in that knowing.
Oh yeah,
when she is pregnant with a girl, what happens? Yeah,
no, that can't be lost on it either. So of course it turns out that Morgan Edge is effectively looking through Clark's memories to find out why he cares about Earth, and he's the shadow that's popped up a couple of times. And I do love that Jor-El is able to sort of like get a message through to him where he says, get out of here now, son, at one point.
Yeah,
it kind of merges from flashback Jor-El into real Jor-El in the fortress.
It's just I appreciate how quickly, once it starts getting weird, and you're like realizing something's properly going on, it doesn't waste too much time at that point. It's maybe only another 5 minutes before it's okay, real world.
Yeah,
we can't tease this out all episode. And
it's this thing where he knew Superman would be weak, and Clark points that out. He says, "You knew I'd be weak from the solar flare," which tracks with the effects in the comics. And even Supergirl actually, when Supergirl did. I mean, Supergirl,
and even just what they told us last episode.
Yeah, and in fact, Supergirl outright lost her powers for a few episodes. I don't think that's happening here, but
no, I think he's just weak.
But he is weak, and that's reinforced as well when they try to fight, and Morgan Edge just punches his face in and leaves him decked out on the snow. And the big thing here though is that he's like, well, I know you've got a family now, so I'm going to go kill them. Like, enough of this bullshit. Like, you've got people you care about, so I can just deal with that. And this is actually when we cut to everyone else. We cut to the other characters. It was actually kind of weird cutting to Jonathan, Jordan, and Sarah, and Lois, and Kyle, and Lana, because it was like, oh, yes, these characters exist too. They've not been in this episode.
There is a world outside the fortress.
Yeah, I mean, Lana technically was in, and so was Kyle, I suppose, because there's that moment where Clark sees them when he just comes back, and they're supposed to be like 22 or whatever age they're supposed to be.
Yes, just recently engaged by the seams of it.
Yes, going to see Harry Potter too.
We don't know that we're going to see Harry Potter. There was other things on.
Kyle's a dick.
But I mean, probably.
He was going to see Harry Potter too.
Oh, come on. Lana be the one dragging him to Harry Potter.
Okay, that's very true. But Kyle's still a dick.
It's hard to argue with that.
So, and Kyle is feeling kind of guilty that he was all pro Morgan Edge and that he kind of let the town go to this. He also apologizes to Lois for being a dick, which he absolutely was, repeatedly. So
she never says that he wasn't or anything to try and make him feel better. I appreciate that.
No. She just accepts the apology, but yeah,
but also is like, yes, you were wrong.
Sarah kisses Jordan, makes it clear that this pretending to be friends bullshit, we're done with that.
Yeah, for about 3 episodes, I'm sure.
Don't be so cynical. They've earned some trust here, okay?
I know.
They've earned some trust. And it's when they're on their way home that, just as Lois is saying, well, you've got a girlfriend now. This is clearly well, not the first time either of them have, because Jonathan had one, but now you've got a girlfriend. We're going to have a parental talk with you about the rules and whatnot. And but he's in a good mood. Jonathan's in a good mood. He's teasing his brother. Lois is in a relatively good mood, and they hear some whooshing, and they're like, "Oh, Dad's home." And then Morgan Edge is there, and I have to give the show credit because this felt legitimately dangerous, because he can just melt them all.
I like him just, it's like the dichotomy of him calling himself casually Uncle Morgan.
That was funny. I like that.
While at the same time being like, he could just like heat vision them into dust.
It was the way he just sort of put his arms and says, "So Uncle Morgan's paying a visit instead." There was just this demented like villain happiness that I was into.
Look, I still think he'd be better as Adrian Pasdar.
Oh, I agree. He's better an actor for sure.
But I'm liking this actor more as this version of Morgan Edge now. You know, like now that he's out as a Kryptonian. I think it's a lot. I think he's pulling that off a lot better than he was this skeezy businessman.
I think so too, because he's getting to be a bit more theatrical with it, which I think lends itself. But yeah, I agree. He's definitely improved since he shed the business suit, and yeah. So that's cool. Morgan's about to kill Lois first because he wants the boys to watch. Although I do like that Jordan, and I also like that he fails because he's not good enough to do it yet, but I like that he tries. I like that he's like, "No, I'm the one with powers. Get behind me. I'm going to heat vision this prick."
Even Edge recognizes, I see you've inherited the false bravado.
Yeah, and he reacts quick enough to win the exchange, but even he's not expecting Jordan to whip out some heat vision. So that's a neat little moment for that as and it's going to be very satisfying when Jordan can control it enough that he maybe can actually put up a fight and protect his brother and his mum when Clark's not there. But today's not that day. But I do appreciate the attempt. I think it was a really good moment. But he's going to kill Lois. Superman flies in, but he's clearly still weak. He can barely stand. He's on his knees, kind of struggling to get back up, and just says, "Okay, I'll do whatever you want. Stop that." Because Morgan made this pitch to him before he punched him, and for the record, also smashed Jor-El's crystal, effectively killing the ghost of Jor-El, which is big deal in of itself. But Superman says, "I'll do whatever you want, just to hurt them. Like they have to be okay." And he's like, "Surrender," and he says the words, "I surrender," and he flies off with them. And it's this kind of heartbreaking thing because it's like, this is not Superman going evil. He is not turning his back against humanity. Morgan Edge just found the one thing that he will have to make this. And I don't think we were necessarily seeing the brainwashing literally coming, because that's effectively what we're seeing at the end of the episode, is he's getting beamed with this pain stuff. But it does also seem to be actually changing him, because he looks evil at the end. Like his face.
He does. I wasn't sure if it was, because I did consider brainwashing, but I don't know if it's just a reaction to the pain and the anger coming through.
I think if they go down a path where they try to tell me that he's not been in any way altered mentally, and it was just pain, and they have him act kind of evil until he snaps out of it, I'm going to have a hard time accepting that.
I agree. I think it depends how evil he acts at this point.
I mean, I get, because what I'd expect if he wasn't brainwashed or something akin to brainwashing would be he'll do what he's being asked, but he'll be constantly reluctant about it. He'll constantly look like he's not liking that he's doing it. He won't be, trying to scare people necessarily. He's going to be more of a reluctant foot soldier. So, but in the way he's looking at the end, didn't feel that way to me. It looked more like, because we get to see the Edge Fortress. We get to see Edge's father, who looks proper villainous. Like that thing where he's got like long grey hair, but half of it's fallen out, so it's kind of straggly, and he's kind of overweight, and he's just sort of like disgusting. And that sounds like I'm insulting the actor here, but this is part of this is the hair and makeup. It's the set dressing and the.
Oh yeah, this guy doesn't just look like this every day.
But he's got that sort of disgusting. Like, see if you put the mask on him, he'd be the villain from Mad Max Fury Road.
I could see that.
He's like the more Shakespearean version of the Mad Max Fury Road villain.
He's him crossed with Jim Broadbent. Oh,
I could see that. I'll even let you have a Star Wars reference, say the Emperor a little bit. He's got a little bit of the Emperor.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
So he's like, yes, we must do this. And we see him like basically condition young Morgan Edge by blasting him with pain. You must get this weakness out of you, this compassion for anyone. And Morgan Edge at this age is already pretty shit. He's already killed multiple people, but he still shows signs of caring about other Kryptonians. And it's like, no, you must be completely cold. and completely heartless. So here's some pain.
Yeah.
And that's how we end with
Because
Clark.
why not? That's classic Kryptonian training, that.
Well, from the villainous side of Krypton, sure.
Yeah.
And Lois calls John Henry and says it's happening just like you said. I think Superman's been turned. And obviously she knows that he's not been quote-unquote turned. This was different, but she can't say that to John Henry. She has to just sort of sell it as, okay, it's happening. What do we do about it? Tell me you've got preparations in place.
I think this is where she might have to call her father and be like, look, you got any of the more of those kryptonite weapons knocking around?
I think
they might be necessary soon.
Thematically, this is all very well paced out this season, where they're going to have to employ all these things they've been debating all season about what it takes to take down a Superman and a Kryptonian in this final batch of episodes. And we're on break for basically a month now, and I do think it's a very good episode to go on break for, because on the one hand, it's a very nice kind of feel-good episode for a lot of it with the big cliffhanger. The big cliffhanger obviously works as a nice break ending scene, but also just the idea that we said last episode could have been a season finale, and I think sort of selling these last 3 episodes is effectively a little mini-series. It's going to be kind of epic, because it's kind of the big actiony, climax of all this, where all the threads are going to come together. Works.
And I have a lot of faith in them pulling it off right now, because this show has gotten better and better as it's gone on.
Yeah, there was a worry that after a solid kind of start that it would lose what faith it got from us, and it would get worse as it went on. But the season actually has gotten better. Which
I'm really happy to see, because there's nothing worse than those first few episodes kind of being really solid and good, and you got all this promise, and you're excited, and then it just goes nowhere. That's so disappointing.
No, it feels like a very solidly plotted out season, and I think we always compare it to season 1 of Stargirl, because it was this like glimpse of like, oh, these can be good, and that had a couple of maybe more middling episodes in the middle of the season, but that also did clearly get to its best in the last third. That last third was definitely the best of that season.
Absolutely, and I think if you kind of look at this season compared to that, this probably also had that same handful of middling episodes. I think they were just a little bit earlier in the season, so it felt like it's gotten stronger as it's gone on, instead of having that middle chunk of that kind of dropped a little bit in Stargirl.
Yeah, I could see that. I think this show, from I don't know 7 or 8, basically after we came back from the break, it was basically on fire.
It felt like it stepped up a notch after that break.
Yeah. So I really can't fault the show that much. I mean, little nitpicky things, sure, little technical things, sure.
I do wonder if that break might have actually had some impact, because obviously with network TV, they never, they don't finish the whole season beforehand anyway, so they do adjust on the fly to audience reception. But having that kind of extra month of, okay, well, we've got time to actually redo a few things, kind of tweak some stuff that maybe we had planned based on how things are going, reception. Maybe it's actually made a little bit of a difference, and that's why we're noticing that step up where we did.
Yeah, maybe. I think what's interesting to me is that the first half of the season, and to be fair, this was the good elements in the first half, was definitely a little bit more skewed towards the teenagers, and I'm more than happy for it to go back to that when it feels like it needs to, because they're very strong characters and they've done a good job with it. But I think it's interesting that if you had worries in the first batch of episodes, those first 4 or 5, then maybe it's not enough of a Superman show. I think an episode like this, or the last one, show that no, when it gets going, it can actually have big Superman plots as well. It's not too sidelined either, by any means.
No, I mean, he is one of the title characters after all.
Oh yeah. So yeah, another good episode. I really don't have again, I can joke a little bit about a little forced moment here or there, a little CG there or that hereabouts, but nothing
egregious.
Nothing that really impacted my enjoyment of the episode, or being so into the plot is great on 2 levels. On one level, it's great because it's just nice to have a show that I'm excited about watching, which I would basically describe this as being something I look forward to now, as opposed to just, I'll see if it's good. And 2, because the plot element was the weak part in the first half of the season, the fact that side of it's ramped up and become equal to the stronger elements is very encouraging and very reassuring. So
I think it's notable that this episode in particular really highlights its strength in both departments, in that the first half, give or take, of this episode is not plot at all. It is pure just here's some character stuff for 20 minutes, and it's absolutely fantastic. And then it gets into the plot stuff for the back half, and it's like, oh, this is still really good. It doesn't feel like it dropped off or it was uneven in any way. It felt like both these sides of the writing were kind of firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I wonder if part of the reason what's benefiting the writers here versus some of the other CW shows is that because they have two generations of characters very distinctly, where they've got main characters who are meant to be, in their 40s, they're experienced, they're the adults or the heroes, whatever, and you've got your teenagers who are supposed to be the ones who are learning and making mistakes and so on and so on, and you want to have like a good sort of parent-kid relationships and like lessons between them. I wonder if that's actually, in a weird way, forcing them to have the adults actually act like proper adults and not like whatever the hell they are in the Flash. Right, because they have to actually have a difference between the adults and the teenagers, so it's forcing the two camps to actually be written more properly versus just having this one weird mixture where everyone's acting the same immature age.
The teenage 20-year-olds.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you might be onto something there. That might actually be helping them.
Yeah, I mean Oliver Queen, he had the bloodlust, he had the list, he's getting thrown off a plane still, even though the show's not on the air anymore. Like, the whole thing's... That's just a small dig at Stephen Amell. Yeah. The show's good. So let us know what you think of it in the comments. We'll be back with more reviews of this in about a month when it comes back.
That's good. But before we do go, now that you kind of wrapped up, what's the character?
Oh yeah, so if you don't want to know this, if you want to go in completely blind for next episode about who the crossover character is, this is your warning. So... warning, we're beyond the warning. Okay, so the character showing up next week is Diggle.
What?
Well, not next week, next episode.
Wait.
Yeah, this is during the 5-week thing where he's showing up on like every episode or something, or every show.
Okay, I didn't know that either.
Because he's showing up on Legends, but he's not playing Diggle, he's playing like a Diggle ancestor, I think, because he's got like a big mustache.
I was going to say, Is it Diggle, or are we playing him as Green Lantern specifically?
Well, they teased, I mean, as I understand it, because the only episode of Arrow that I have not seen is the very final episode, which is really weird.
Sames.
But the very final scene apparently teased, there was a green glow, like he was looking at a glow.
That's what I remember, hearing at the time.
So yeah, I'm wondering. He could be a Green Lantern Diggle.
Yeah, which could be interesting. Again, I agree. Wouldn't have been the character I predicted.
I mean, if you need another hero to help fight a Superman, Green Lantern's pretty powerful. Like, he can, Green Lantern could stand up for a fight for a bit.
Yes. I pray it doesn't feel too forced.
I hope so too.
Oh, we need someone here.
I hope so too. And it'll be really weird if, like, he shows up and no one even suggests, should we not call Big Cousin Kara? Where's our Big Cousin Kara? Again, assuming she exists on this earth.
Yes, I don't think she's been mentioned yet on this show.
She's not. I don't believe so. In fact, the mention of Jimmy is the first thing that bizarrely kind of connects it to Supergirl, because Jimmy existed on Supergirl. Not that his name proves that it exists, because obviously Jimmy exists in Superman.
Yes, that is the most tenuous of connections possible, but I agree. Theoretically,
but I think the fact that they didn't show him was them acknowledging that it is the same Jimmy, and the reason why we're not showing him and just mention him is because we don't have the actor.
That's interesting, because I kind of watched that and interpret it as we want to cast a Jimmy later.
It could also be that they may cast a Jimmy later, but
yeah,
I took it as we don't have McCad Brooks right now, so we're just going to mention him and no more.
It could be, yeah, could well be that.
So. Hey. But yeah, like, subscribe, and ding the bell for notifications. It helps us out a lot. It helps all YouTube channels out. It's how YouTube channels find their audience, so please do hit those buttons if you do enjoy the review or any of our other content. You can also check out Mail Fuzz Movies, which is the movie equivalent of this channel with the movie podcasts and reviews, so go over there and have a look if you want to. And of course, you can support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble, so go and have a look and see if you're interested. But otherwise, that is us. So we'll see you next time in about a month. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?